Hello friends, this is $1 Trillion Silver, and today I'm going to explain to you why the gold standard is actually the problem with the human society, and we have struggled to get past this era in time for several thousand years because people keep saying that gold is money, and it could be money, but the problem is that it takes a lot of effort for each person to exchange gold with every single person that they want to get goods from. Even in a time before we had the internet, this was difficult and not optimal, which is why currencies developed in the first place. So now in the age of internet and digital capabilities, it's very obvious that we need to step beyond the gold standard. So either way, no matter what you did, unless you met the person face to face, you would have to directly exchange gold with them. So in a time of the internet, this is clearly not possible unless you want to pay a much heftier price, like $7 to $15 more for every object that you want to buy, so that that other person can send you, or so that, whoever is buying the object, they have to pay for the gold to be sent. Or maybe the seller and the buyer could pay 50-50, but either way, this raises the cost of exchanging goods greatly. So what happens is societies start off with the gold standard, and then they immediately, quickly move towards replacing the gold with currency. And this lowers the cost of trading, and there's also credit. There has been credit for a very long time, back to at least before people started to come to America, because a lot of people came here because they were in debts. So there always has been debts, basically, and promises that you will give somebody something else. So it is a must that society at least relatively trusts everyone else in the society if they expect to be a great society that has things like the internet and can trade goods without the other person having to be there with a gun and some gold to make sure the other guy's not ripping them off. If you want a society better than that, then we have to move past gold being money, and we also have to move past the gold standard, because the gold standard is just a bunch of bankers convincing all the citizens to give them their gold, and then they replace what the citizens were exchanging gold with paper. So now the bankers are in possession of your gold. The definition of the gold standard is that you have a unit of currency which is defined with reference to gold. But the fact is, whenever they create these gold standards, they create banks, and there's bankers at those banks. And then those bankers get bored sitting around all your gold, and they figure out a way to sell the gold to somebody else. And then they actually will sell it to someone that doesn't take possession of the gold again, and then they can sell it again and again and again, and they're just going to keep doing this and having a party until they get caught. That's just the way it goes. That's the way it's always gone. People always say everywhere, well, the gold standard will fail every 40 years. That is the definition of insanity. I've called it societal insanity. So we keep doing something that doesn't work. So no matter what, even if we try Bitcoin and it only worked for 5 to 10 years, I think that's a severe step in the right direction. And even with all that said, I still think that we will go back to a gold standard. China will make the gold standard because society's insane. It's kind of scary though, because I don't want Bitcoin to not work, and then people to say, see, I told you digital currency wasn't good. But I still think that Bitcoin is much better than the gold standard, because all the gold standard is a paper standard. It's just a bunch of gold hidden in a vault with you having paper. That's what the gold standard is. You've been tricked, and all society's been tricked for 4,000 years, to the point where people think they're awake and they'll be promoting the gold standard. And yes, you may be able to make some money off it and you'll be rich, but by promoting the gold standard, then your children and grandchildren will be subject to what we're going through again right now. And just constantly, every third generation you're subjecting to this. And what I am proposing is that gold is not money anymore. Because of the internet, gold is now just a store of value. See, gold performs that function perfectly well, and now for some reason people think that 401k paper investments are a store of value, but there's no value stored there, at least none that you can be sure is there. So if we're in an internet age, we can't have gold because we're trading with people far away. If the internet disappeared, then I'd be perfectly fine with gold being money again. But the fact is, if you want gold to be money, you can't let a gold standard occur, because then gold's not money, then paper's now money. And gold's sitting in a vault behind a banker's butt and not at your house. I think a much better way to create a financial system would be for people to exchange a digital currency, not necessarily Bitcoin, but a properly optimized digital currency, which does have inherent value. The inherent value is that it serves as an exchange method, and also that it records who has each currency unit and like how it's traveled through the system. So there is value there. The value is that you get to get rid of bankers. You need to figure out a way to create a bankerless system, because then you just have a bunch of people sitting on top of the real money, and they have given all the people fake money. So what if all the people each had their own, like Gregory Mannarino says, they just keep their own central bank at their house. Each person has their own store of gold, and in between them they exchange digital currency. This is just a video from a great YouTuber called Pastor Dowell, and I'm trying to explain to you that even if you do live in an economic system where paper fiat dollars have taken over the whole world pretty much, you can create your own self-sufficient and separated economy by yourself, and this allows you to not really worry about the dollar. I guarantee that Pastor Dowell within his community has some type of promissory agreements where people owe people things and they pay each other back with other methods besides the dollar. If they do, which I'm sure that they do, because this would increase your community strength, because you won't be being robbed by the inflation, but other communities would. So once you create your own separate economy, you're not dependent upon what the rest of the economy does, and you actually might be doing better when everyone else is doing worse. Some of you may be confused as to what I'm trying to tell you to do, but yes, I still suggest that you buy gold and silver, but I just think that you need to be aware that promoting the gold standard promotes getting rid of your gold and silver and giving it to bankers, and you would be sentencing your grandchildren and possibly children to deal with what we're dealing with right at this moment, the next time the currency breaks away. So yes, you can support precious metals and realize that the gold standard is the #1 problem with the human society over the past 4,000 years, and you can do this by supporting Bitcoin and other digital currencies in addition to your precious metals. So maybe instead of creating a gold standard based off of some new paper dollar, we could just reevaluate Bitcoin to gold, and it's just not necessary for people to be able to go anywhere to exchange their currency in for something, as long as they can go to the society and get equivalent value of goods. That is what should be their main issue of trust with the currency, and also understanding just the function of the currency. Bitcoin can't be replicated. Anything that can be endlessly replicated will never be able to function as a useful long-term currency. And gold just will not function because it has too high of costs, and simply by getting rid of the gold and having it sit somewhere and having things move around that act as the gold, you can instantly create an economic boost, but it's only temporary. And this is what creates bankers, trying to get this temporary boost from moving from a gold standard to a paper standard. So what I'm telling you is that we have entered a new age, a digital age, that the Greeks and the Romans and everybody else before us didn't have a chance to make it to, and they were trying to crawl out of the depths of the gold standard and reach higher enlightenment, where they traded and exchanged promises that they understood were promises, because unless you actually have something, you don't really have something. But It is a requirement in a large society like that we deal with that we can have at least some small amount of trust in our society that it will return us with, like if I'm exchanging Bitcoin to someone, so I give them 10 Bitcoins for some product that they created, and they're factoring their time and effort that they put in. So then they have 10 Bitcoins, they're trusting that they can get 10 Bitcoins worth of stuff, or equivalent to what they gave me plus the value. They need to get that back from the society. And as long as they can go and do that very day or the next day, then, and they know that they can, then they have trust in the currency. It's totally unnecessary for us to have bankers to trust our currency and to trust each other. So that you're hearing Patriot John Adams with TrillionDollarSilver.com and TrillionDollarMedia.com. You can follow me on Twitter here and see some of my comments. Yeah, sometimes I definitely get a little bit rambunctious with my comments, but pretty young, 25, and I'm just sick of the craziness of our society. So yeah, I kind of have knock 'em over the head attitude, but that's just the way I am. So I hope you guys appreciate it. If you don't like it, please unsubscribe, and still hope to see you guys soon. $1 trillion Silver out.